read the disclaimer at your leisure. Xanadu is an exploration and development company. That means we operate in the front end of the value chain, like many of the companies here at this conference. We discover, we define, and we develop. At a certain point, our projects get moved on to a company that wants to operate them. We realize value for our shareholders and we move on. Within that value chain we've defined for Xanadu, we have two projects. The first is towards the tail end, which is called Kharmagtai. It is a large porphyry project and is in pre-feasibility study stage. We have Red Mountain, which is an earlier stage porphyry, also in the South Gobi Desert in Mongolia, and in the front of our value chain, we're actively seeking new projects. Xanadu has a proven board and management. In particular, I'd call out that we have a very strong Mongolian team, including our chief operating officer and our country manager. They've proven that they can operate independently, especially during the period of COVID-19 a couple of years ago. And we have senior representatives from Zijin Mining Group, including a board member and a member of our management team on the project of Kharmagtai, specifically for that project. We're our joint venture. Mongolia is not well known within the mining industry, certainly not on the smaller end of town anyway. We see that as our competitive advantage. There's very large deposits already discovered in Mongolia. Look at Oyu Tolgoi, Kharmagtai, Erdenet, but it's relatively underexplored. In fact, it's only been open for exploration for perhaps 30 years, with Ivanhoe being one of the first movers. It's on China's doorstep, which is the largest consumer of metals in the world, has infrastructure that the government has been putting in place specifically to enable mining in the South Gobi Desert. Just in the past couple of years, there's been an east-west rail line designed specifically to move coal and copper through the country and down to China. Has a mining culture, and it's stable and democratic with a highly educated workforce. While the small end of town doesn't know Mongolia as well, the majors are paying attention. In fact, BHP has re-entered the country. They were an early mover through their accelerator program, Explore. Rio Tinto has just recently doubled down on the Oyu Tolgoi project by buying out its minority holders. And of course, Zijin, who's a partner with Xanadu, they like to tell us that they produced more copper than Rio Tinto last year, and they'd like to continue that, and they've invested through Kharmagtai, their first investment in Mongolia. The strategic partnership with Zijin was completed in March of this year. That involved investment in the top co and in the asset. So in the top co, they became our largest shareholder, just under the 20% takeover threshold. And in the asset, they invested $35 million US, which gave them 50% of the project and funded the project through to pre-feasibility study as well as continued exploration. Xanadu is relatively tightly held, 60% held by top 20 shareholders, 10% by management, and about $110 million market cap company, depending on the day. But the interesting bit of that about this slide is really our share price. And our share price has been the story of the culmination of our previous 2020 strategy, which was to define a domain, the Kharmagtai resource, to a point where we could put a project on it, to do a study that's very conservative and leverages the high-grade core of the project to demonstrate its economics, and to find a partner, because at the time, if you look at Xanadu as a $30 million market cap company, which we were, it's just not realistic to think we could develop a 1 billion ton porphyry deposit, and the market didn't believe it. We needed a partner that had the scale as well as the proven track record to develop a project of this scale. We did the deal in March, which you see is the first arrow there on the share price chart. We started reporting results from spending that money in June, July, and that's where the market finally believed that this was real, this was happening, and we're adding value to the project. So we finished the previous strategy as we defined it, and we've re-articulated our strategy in 3 horizons. The first horizon of which is to deliver the Kharmagtai project. Xanadu is the operator of the pre-feasibility study. The second horizon is to have a world-class discovery. Kharmagtai remains open and has significant potential for discovery on that project, and that is funded by the Zijin partnership. We also have Red Mountain, which we're exploring actively as our second project, and then we move to the third horizon, which is to expand and grow the portfolio. A scoping study or a PEA defines what you could do. A PFS defines what you should do. We're in the PFS stage now. This is funded. We're working closely with Zijin as our partner. And we've essentially completed our data acquisition stage now, which means there'll be a new resource coming out in December, and that will then build the rest of the project through next year to completion in August, September of 2024. Call attention to the timeline at the bottom, and this highlights one of the advantages of Mongolia. This project could be producing as early as 2027 in terms of initial concentrate production. There aren't many projects that could do that, certainly of this scale, and that highlights again the low ESG barriers and the support we get in Mongolia. Full noise is a term my chairman uses, so we threw it on a slide. Essentially, the key message of this is that the PFS is significant resources devoted to it, and it's going at full speed. Within that pre-feasibility study and the infill drill program, we've had really good results. The results have shown that that we're either equivalent to or better than our 2021 resource. In particular, there are three areas that have been better than that, and they're worth highlighting. The first is Stockwork Hill. Stockwork Hill is the key feed to the early years of the project, the higher grade feed. Infill drilling has extended the high grade zones of that 120 meters vertically towards the surface within the pit shell, which means we're converting waste to ore, and it means we're going to get more metal quicker with no change to the pre-feasibility, or sorry, to the project as defined in the PEA. White Hill is the main feed to the project. White Hill delivers feed all the way through the full 30 years, and while we had theorized of a high grade core to that deposit, we hadn't found it yet. But the infill drilling has identified that. You can see it. Supposedly the laser pointer here doesn't seem to be working. That's okay. Just under the pit shell, you can see the pit shell and the red zone underneath it. That's where we've tagged, and all the modeling shows that that's only going to continue. So this will, in fact, improve the project as we go through a pre-feasibility study and change the way we shape these pits. And finally, at Golden Eagle, this was a supplementary feed with high gold content in the project, but now we've identified some much higher grade zones within that. Importantly for the geologists in this room, that occurred in USTs or unidirectional solidification textures, if I said that correctly. What's meaningful about that is that occurs in the presence of a larger porphyry deposit. And as a result, we're reconfiguring our exploration program around Golden Eagle specifically to look for the more interesting thing that may be lying underneath. And finally, through the pre-feasibility study, we are upgrading Kharmagtai operations. In fact, we've completed the work now to convert it from an exploration project to a construction project. Most importantly, we've put grid power into the project now. So we've shut down our diesel gen sets, and we were able to run a grid line and connect for a few $100,000 in a few months. In a lot of jurisdictions, that just would be not feasible, neither for the price nor for the regulatory hurdles you'd have to jump through to do it. I'll talk now about Horizon 2, world-class discoveries. So the focus of our discovery exploration has been primarily at Kharmagtai, which is the joint venture with Zijin. That includes an 8,000 meter deep program and a 10,000 meter shallow program. The shallow program is dual purpose. It's both to test our untested targets, but also for sterilization for the purposes of the project. Looking for whether there's new open pits that we could put into the early stages of the project. The 8,000 meter deep program is targeting something bigger. So what I'll do is go to the next slide. So what we're looking for is an analog to the Hugo Dummett deposit at Oyu Tolgoi, which is just down the road. We've got similar rocks, we've got similar structures. Xanadu's project at Kharmagtai was also an Ivanhoe project. The difference is it's a better open pit, but we haven't drilled to the depth where we would even hit the target of Oyu Tolgoi yet, of Hugo Dummett yet. So we need to test that. We need to identify whether there is something like that at Kharmagtai, because that could transform the project from what it is to something different, bigger and better. And that's funded by our deal with Zijin. So we have the money to do it, and we're putting those deep holes in now. For a KDE, so for an Australian example, maybe or maybe not important for this market, I was previously involved in Cadia Valley, which was a Newcrest asset. That was also a low-grade open pit, and Newcrest took a big risk starting to develop the Cadia pit until it started drilling deeper, and it hit Ridgeway and Cadia East, and those transformed into the most important asset of the company. Xanadu, as I mentioned earlier, does have a second project. I've been talking about Kharmagtai, but we are also exploring at Red Mountain. Red Mountain's earlier stage, it has multiple types of mineralization, porphyry, but it's been described as more like North Parks than something very dispersed like Kharmagtai. As we look at that, we're targeting gold projects specifically in our current exploration program, something higher grade, smaller scale than Kharmagtai, and then continuing looking at the different areas. There's significant number of targets on this project, and we're working our way through it in a very structured manner. It's also in the South Gobi Desert, to the east of Kharmagtai, a couple hundred kilometers. Third part of our strategy is portfolio growth. So looking at this map, see Mongolia in the middle, Russia's to the north, China to the south, Kazakhstan to the west. The volcanic belts that run through those areas run through all three of those countries, but most of the mines occur to the north, the south, and to the west. The reason for that is Mongolia is underexplored. It's only been open for about 30 years. We've already got Oyu Tolgoi and a couple of big projects in Mongolia, but there's significant potential within that country for more. Xanadu has a good position in terms of our network and our experience in country, and we're leveraging that to get in and out of projects, typically on an earn-in type approach, so that we can turn them over and find our next Mongolian discovery. And I guess I will comment that the focus is really on critical minerals, primarily copper and nickel, but others as well. I'll talk briefly, very briefly, about sustainability. So that's core to our business, but really this re-highlights the low ESG barriers in Mongolia and the fact that we're working hard to maintain that situation and that relationship with Mongolia and working closely with the country. I would invite you to look at our third sustainability report that was published this year. So I'll close here. Xanadu gives you exposure to a world-class project at later stage, potential for significant new discovery, as well as growth within Mongolia, and specifically to the country and region around Mongolia. And that's it. Thanks for the opportunity to present.